Hi, I'm James Brookes, and welcome to From the Factory Floor, a conversational podcast about all things startup and tech, brought to you by the folks at tsf.tech. So we've managed to make it all the way to episode 12, and delighted to be joined by, once again, Aleksa after a very brief reprieve, appearances, and also Mr. Raymond. Hello.
Well, hello. Hi, James. So I think I appeared in episode 1, and then I'm not sure whether it's performance-based or just coincidence, but then it wasn't until episode 10 that I appeared, but maybe that went a little better and you've invited me back again.
Well, maybe we can, I think we've got you a couple more times in the next few weeks anyway, so we'll make up for lost time.
Things are looking up.
Hi. Good to be back. I think after 1 week of rest, now all
Refresh
recharged and refreshed. Yeah.
I think you've earned the international break, so I'm sure we'll get back to you more tech-based things soon. So last time out, we discussed a lot of things about one of my favourite topics, which is all about agile and the role of a project manager and what role that processes play in startup and how they develop. This week is almost at a higher level than that, and something which may both have experience in, which is all about culture, in terms of company culture, team culture. And I think the great thing about having you guys with me today is that obviously, Aleksa, you've got experience in terms of tech culture. I know we mentioned that in a couple of previous episodes. And obviously, Guy, you've got a little bit of experience, I think. If I say just a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm quite. I mean, is this a 3-hour podcast or what's the aim?
We'll try and stick to the usual 25 minutes.
Okay.
We run over.
Plenty to discuss. I'll do it quickly.
I mean, I don't know where the best place to start is really. So I guess as a starter for 10, we could almost just ask the question, what is company culture? When we talk about it, what are we actually referring to?
Okay, so I mean, as in danger of looking like I've prepared for this, James, I've actually got the definition of culture. Well, a definition of culture. I'm sure there's many more actually, but I like this one, and I think it does resonate, and I think it is true. So I'm going to read it verbatim. So culture is the characteristics and knowledge of a particular group of people, encompassing language, religion, cuisine, social habits, music, and arts. The word culture derives from a French term, which in turn derives from a Latin, and I hope I pronounce this correctly, colere, which means to tend to the earth and grow and cultivate and nurture. So I think, those last 3 words in particular, grow, cultivate and nurture, are really relevant to what, an entrepreneur really has to do to build or begin to build a decent cultural platform in their business. And, it kind of takes me back to a quote I heard from Branson years ago. And this kind of struck a chord. And, the quote is, clients don't come first, employees come first. If you take care of your employees, they will take care of your clients. And I think that's really true. And I think the other thing about culture is if you get it right, then you become a destination, and people hear about you. Your reputation precedes you. People want to come and work for you. People want to engage with you on a commercial basis. So I think there's many good reasons why every entrepreneur should try and build a strategic culture, something they've thought about. And I'm going to just run through several areas that I believe that culture is really important. And I guess then Aleksa and I will go through each of those and, just kind of debate them in a relatively quick manner and hopefully then come to a conclusion. So, people have to be front and center of your cultural thinking. Going back to the Branson quote again, if you get that right, then the people you have will serve your customers in the right way. Environment that people work in is obviously really important. And that doesn't mean, you have to have a big slide going through the center of your office that people on the top floor can jump down and land on a beanbag and have a game of foosball at the bottom of the slide. It's much more than that. Tools and resources are very important. Perks and benefits are important. Personal behavior and personal development are very important. Technical improvement for a technical team, clearly, and finally communication. So kind of picking up on each of these points. Actually, just before we do, I think, one of the things that I did when we built a culture at my previous company, Cake, was we tried to focus on one key thing that we became famous for, that people thought, this is a really interesting company, we want to come and work for these guys. Or if they hadn't heard about us, when we talked to them, it kind of resonated with them. And actually, it was all about building personal brand. Many companies are afraid of allowing their people to do talks, to write blogs, to do podcasts, to maybe be parts of user groups, because they're concerned that will allow the recruiters to come in and poach them, and it kind of puts the head above the parapet. Whereas I take the view that if you give people this platform, they are proud to work for the company. They want to shout about what they do for the company. And that kind of comes across in whether it's a talk, whether it's a blog, whether it's a podcast, whatever it is. They're kind of building their personal brand. They're building their reputation in the community. It's great for them, great for their morale, great for their learning. And it's great for the company. And do you know what? I think if you allow people to do that and you provide some of the other things we've talked about around environment, tools and resources and so on, then actually your company becomes very sticky and people don't want to leave. So yes, they will be approached. They'll be approached anyway, let's face it. All your good people will be. You just need to give them a better reason to stay with you. And it's not all about money, by the way. Money's important, never underpay people, but you shouldn't have to buy people in either. Aleksa, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that side of things.
Great point there, Guy. I think what you're saying there, it's not about money and letting people express themselves. It is about really having a set of values built into your company that you all work towards as a kind of a common goal, really, and that becomes the most valuable thing. That will actually drive all these other things around the culture that you mentioned. And I think, just to add to some of the things you said, I think we all want to be satisfied and challenged at what we do, really, and the culture is what makes that happen in any company, and never more important than in a startup, really, where you want that kind of togetherness, working towards the common goal, enjoying coming to the office or working remotely, whatever it is, being like one big family away from home, really, from your personal perspective. And that's what culture will give you.
Yeah, and you just picking up on something you mentioned there, that the environment that people work in is important. So you can provide people with a platform to grow and to build the personal brand, but you also want the right environment for them to work in. And I think particularly relevant at the moment, it's not just about your office and how nice your office is and how comfortable it is and the kind of maybe some of the gizmos that you have in there and how nice the coffee is. Although clearly the coffee is an important aspect I've learned over the years. But it's particularly relevant at the moment. It's about the flexibility. That's part of your environment now. So you work-life balance. The fact that actually now we know, and actually we've known for many years. Let's face it. For probably 10, 15 years, we've had a flexible work from home policy where people can work in the office and work remotely. I think there's a new term now called all-remote. Now, what that means is that you're basically empowering your team to decide where they work. They can choose their environment. They can choose to work in the office. And if it's a comfortable, relaxing, creative type environment with lots of whiteboards to communicate and good quality tools and resources to use, up-to-date computers, decent headsets, all that kind of good stuff that you need nowadays, then that's great. But you also, want to try and help people have a good quality of working environment at home. And, some people will have a room that I'm in, a very small office of my own in the house. I'm fortunate, but not everybody has that. But what we can do is whatever they have, we can try and help them make the best of it by giving them some good equipment to take back with them, good quality laptop, no more than 3 years old, good quality headset, and whatever else they need to make themselves comfortable at home and kind of get that work-life balance. And let's face it, no one wants to commute for an hour every day to the office. Let's give people the empower people to make the decisions for the best for themselves, but also the best for the business as to where they work on any particular day.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I've seen it firsthand in many places where that kind of investment is seen as a kind of a less important in terms of equipment and how your technical team specifically work, and see that as a kind of a investment that's not really required and could be saved on. And I think that is a big mistake, I think, because even if you look at the cost of a modern laptop or headphones or anything that you said, Guy, I mean, in the long run, that so much makes sense and adds value by additional productivity and satisfaction of spending time at work. And let's face it, if you're a techie, you are spending most of your day with your equipment. That's your key tool you want to use. You wouldn't give in any other job a tool that's not the best for the purpose that gives most productivity and satisfaction with your job.
Yeah, the analogy I'd use is that I've got this thing about always investing, in a proper bed, because you actually spend a reasonable amount of time of your life in bed, resting and recuperating, ready for the next day. And there's pointless buying a cheap mattress because it's certainly not going to improve your life, and it's probably going to affect it negatively. And for the amount of time you spend there, spend the money on a good mattress. And I think that you're exactly right. Spend the money on good quality tools that make your life easier, make you more efficient, and just enjoy yourself a little bit more. And I think there's other things you can do as well. Kind of moving on from the environment, looking at the tools and resources. We've kind of discussed the quality of the machines and that kind of thing, but there's also little things that you can do. I'll give you one quick example. There's loads of these, and actually your team is probably the best place to find out as to what other great ideas that people have. But we used to have a policy of, and TSS exactly the same. If somebody wants a book that is to learn about a new tool, a new, maybe even language, whatever it is, then people don't have to seek permission to get that book. All they do is they fire an email over to the administrator, and the administrator just automatically orders. There's no needing to get authorization or anything like that. The book comes, people enjoy it, they read it, and it goes into the library for other people to enjoy. It's just little touches like that where you give people freedom and empower them to make their own decisions that really make a difference. Lunch and Learn is another great one. It's not a new thing. It's been around for decades. But, we had a developer at Cake who was a big fan of Kotlin. And it wasn't really one of our tools of choice at that point. But it was something he was really interested in. And he came in and he talked about his passion at one of the Lunch and Learns. And everyone enjoyed it. And sometimes those kind of situations actually lead to really useful discussions about the kind of tools and techniques and processes that you're going to use in the future. So yeah, anyway, lots of good stuff that we could talk about on tools and resources. Is there anything else you want to add to any of that, Aleksa, before we kind of move on to maybe perks and benefits?
Yeah, I think that the main point, I think it's been said many times, those are such a small things, and a lot of things you said, books and resources and things like that, and equipment, that definitely is worthwhile investment. If any startup is looking at whether they are looking to save the money, this is not the area you would want to do that if you're looking for a sort of long-term quality of the technical product that you want to build.
Yeah, no, absolutely true. And, perks and benefits, I don't want to spend too long on this because, every company has their own kind of ideas about this. But again, what I do is I'm going to give one example as to how I think, the team can decide what perks and benefits are useful. A lot of companies offer, I don't know, things like, healthcare, maybe dental care, bike to work, which is an excellent one in my view. But yeah, again, we had one of our teams suggested having fresh fruit as an offering every day. And so as soon as that was suggested, we said, wow, well, why wouldn't we do that? Because it's healthy. It encourages right behaviors with people. It goes hand in hand with the fact that we also offer gym membership. So again, goes down the health route. It's not massively expensive. It's not going to eat into the profits. And it's something we can easily organise. We literally every 2 days had a fresh fruit delivery from Tesco's. So it really didn't take any time either. So, those kind of little things can really make a big difference. So even though it's not a major perk, I think it's really appreciated. Good quality coffee. I could probably do a podcast on coffee. It's something I was always a tea drinker, and it always amazed me, how much passion people talk about coffee. We had one employee who used to go to coffee fairs, and he became my go-to person to advise me what machine we needed for the company and the type of coffee. And it's unbelievable. It's like, wines, there's so many different varieties. But anyway, yeah, it's like I say, that's a whole different podcast in itself. But, hopefully, you take my point that these little things, these little perks and benefits are often more important and better received than some of the traditional things that a lot of the corporates do. And it's a cheap way for a startup to, make a difference and help build a culture.
I remember back in the day, obviously, when we were at Cake, and even like the football on a Tuesday night, which obviously, everyone, people from the company did, and it was really nice. Look, that's the sort of perk that people, I think, really appreciate.
I think we said this before. I think that the time has changed, and especially in the tech kind of industry, where money and monetary reward isn't everything. That's how you should, at least how I look at the perks and benefits, not through how much monetary value do they bring, but how much do they improve your lifestyle and make your overall life work balance, but also your enjoyment and satisfaction at work better. So that's where these small things do really make difference. This sort of fruit, coffee, Wednesday in a pub with a team, and those sort of small things that kind of are continuous and always around, and feel you more part of what you do.
Well, if we were on a webinar, you'd be able to see me do this, but I'm holding up my freshly ground cup of coffee. So from being a total tea drinker and listening to what people were asking for, I've actually now become a little bit of a coffee snob, and I won't drink Nescafe Instant anymore. Anyway, okay, so moving on. I think another really important aspect of culture is people's development. So that in a technical team clearly includes technical development, but it also includes their own personal development. And again, I could talk for quite a long time about specific people that we employed at Kate that came in probably fairly low on confidence and self-esteem, but were really great engineers. And in the right kind of environment with the right culture, those people just continually surprise you and thrive and grow personally. And that's a mixture of, their own technical development, which we used to put a lot of effort in, but also their own kind of personal development. Now that could be some soft skills training that we had soft skill training from time to time, but we also, I believe, provided an environment where people could slowly begin to interact directly with clients, and that is incredibly powerful for somebody who probably is only, before they came to the company, only ever worked behind the scenes, behind a computer, to come out and begin to interact with a client. And actually, some of these people then went on to become senior members of the technical team, but also team leads. So they added the management skill and the stuff that wasn't sort of, they didn't have naturally to begin with. They learned, and actually maybe there was some natural talent in there. It just hadn't had the opportunity to surface. So I think, the personal behavioral development and the technical improvement are just such massively important parts of the culture. And they need to be really well thought about. And the reality is you don't have to spend tens of thousands of pounds to offer those kind of things. They just need to be thought about carefully. There's a bit more detail. This is probably a great point, actually, just to mention that we are on the cusp of bringing out a book. I think beginning of next year, we'll have a book that is squarely aimed at tech product entrepreneurs. And there's a real mixture of information in there, from the things technically you should be thinking about through to some of the more kind of cultural aspects and, marketing and legal and, just looking after yourself financially and so on. So there's quite a bit of information on some of these subjects in a bit more detail than we're perhaps going to cover on today's podcast. And I think, technical improvement, there's some good ideas in the book. So do keep an eye on that. We will be talking about it more. We will be producing some blogs around that subject. And there is quite a bit of detail in the book. And you can always feel free to reach out to us. There's details at the end of this podcast and on the end of the blog to contact us if you want to take this conversation further. It doesn't always have to be about business. Sometimes it's just a discussion, and we all learn from that. So anyway, maybe a timely thing to kind of mention that point.
Great time to mention that, yes. And I think just going back briefly to your personal behavior development, what I found that makes a big difference when planning for or delivering as part of your culture of development of your team is that sort of a mentorship culture. I'm not sure what you think, Guy, but that sort of, leading by example, showing how things are done, then slowly introducing your colleagues to things that they might not be as comfortable with, but at the same time always being listening to what your entire team has to say. Because even you said, Guy, before, you'll have, especially the tech team members who are maybe not that open and not used to dealing with the clients, but they still have a lot of other skills that you can still learn from. And so kind of making this as a two-way communication is quite important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to legitimately set up a cultural platform that's well thought through and, rolled out in the right way, it has to come from the top down. Everybody in your senior leadership team has to be on board with this. It's actually, it used to be one of the key criteria for hiring people at Cake. There was the technical question, which clearly is really important. If they weren't from the technical side of the business, there was a few from the commercial side, maybe in the operational side, but same principles apply. They have to be really good at the job, clearly, because you want to build a really smart team who are really good at what they do. But the other important aspect, which sometimes is overlooked, is will they fit in? Have they got the right mindset to work in the way that we work as a team? Because, particularly in the leadership roles, if you get somebody who just, is fully focused on delivery and absolutely nothing else, then, you lose some important aspects of your business. They need to be fully bought into the culture and do things in the right way, treat people properly, lead by example, practice what they preach. I'm going in, playing cliche bingo here a little bit, but hopefully you get my drift. It has to come from the top down. The whole of your leadership team have to be bought into this. They, in an ideal world, they've grown up with it. They're partly responsible for it, and that's how you get the buy-in. And then the people you hire have to have that kind of mindset as well. So it's definitely part of the interview process to try and it is a bit of a judgment call. And it is about having not just the technical chat and doing the technical pair programming tests, whatever it is that you do. It's about having just a general chat and getting a feel for that person that has to form part of that interview process. Really important. And it kind of leads us into the last kind of thing I'd like to talk about here, which is communication. And, Aleksa, really, you've just brought up that really important point about leadership and driving the ideas and the culture from the top down. How do you do that? It's easy when it's a smaller team, but as you grow and you're going through maybe some high growth period and you're getting into 30, 40, 50, 100 kind of people, then, how do you do that? And there's a you need a communication strategy. When you're small and there's a few of you, you have the regular communication just naturally because you're a small team, either sat next to each other or you're talking regularly over Zoom or a mixture of both probably. Gets a little bit harder as you get bigger, and you just need to do things slightly differently. And you definitely don't want to go down the corporate route and become too corporate. You've got to leave it fairly agile and keep it efficient and very targeted. But you can have quarterly town halls where you get the team together and you talk about. I used to love talking about what we'd achieved in the last quarter because it excited people. I wanted to turn around and say, yeah, we're talking to, I don't know, at one point we were talking to Audi. We're talking to Audi at the moment. We don't know where it's going to go, but, it's around sort of IoT and that kind of thing. And people got excited about that. They were proud that such a small company was engaging with some really quite big players on some really important big projects. And again, that's how you keep it's part of the culture that, top-down communication, exciting people, involving them in the business. And you know what, as well, I'm a believer that if things are not going quite as well as you'd hoped, then you're honest with people and people understand the situation, because then when you make certain decisions, they kind of understand why those decisions are being made, and but they also perhaps understand that yes, you are where you are at the moment. Every business goes through ups and downs, every business, and if you're in a down period, they want to know how what you're doing as the leader to get them back up, and and that communication really engenders trust. And if you get that right, that is definitely all part of the culture as well. So communication's key. There's loads of tools you can use to communicate on a regular basis with your team, but you just need to make sure that you do it. That's a key thing. I don't know, Aleksa, have you experienced anything like that really?
That is incredibly important. I mean, we're mentioning it almost at the end, but that sort of a motivation and bringing everyone together really, because regardless whether you're in a small company or a large, a person has a responsibility for a small bit, be it a small piece of technology or maybe a small part of the business. But what they really want to be involved with everything that's going on. So rather than leave them sort of focused and siloed in that small space, make sure that the company is open and through that communication, pass that message across where we are going as a whole, really. But also at the same time, I think I've said this before, make sure you find the model where you listen to your team as well and take all the input and all the feedback that you can. So not making just one-way top-down communication, but the proper two-way communication across the board.
I think that's quite a nice place to really end it on the basis that we're already at the half an hour mark, which...
this went quick.
It went very quick. I don't think we've gone through a podcast where I've said as little either, so it's been nice and easy for me. So I guess as has become our ritual in some ways in finishing these is, what would be your one key takeaway, Guy? Because obviously you said quite a lot there, but what's the one key thing for you that really, for building culture is the most important thing?
Well, I think, building a cultural platform is probably the single most important factor for your company's development, all the way from when you start out and have a very definite culture that you can talk to the first few employees of the company, all the way through to high growth. Having the right culture sets you up to have the right platform for high growth. There are other elements in it clearly, but culture is a key ingredient. It also, sets you up to hire incredible people. In an ideal world, what you want, same with sales actually, if you get your culture right and people hear about it, it'll do two things. It'll do more than two things, but two key things for the business and for the development and to take you into that high growth period. It will generate sales. You will get incoming calls because, people hear about what you do. your team are passionate about what they do. They shout about what they do in the public domain, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be on a blog, whether it be on LinkedIn, whether it's a podcast, whether it's just chatting to their mates, other developers, whether it's at user groups, whether they're giving talks at conferences. That kind of enthusiasm is infectious. And when people talk, employees talk about your company in that way, then, it will make clients want to engage with you. And it'll also, and this is a second point, it will really encourage other people to come and join you. Kate, I was very proud at Kate that we had 18 different nationalities working for us at one point. Now, what that meant was that the message literally went around the world. We were quite niche in what we did, but we also shouted about what we did. And the message went to all corners of the world. So we had all sorts of people apply for jobs, and it was always about what we did and what our culture was. So I'll leave it to that. I can talk for hours about this, but we're probably I better let Aleksa get a word in edgeways. Apologies, Aleksa.
No, that's all right. I'll just say something that we might have. I'm not sure if you said it explicitly, but I think for successfully building a company culture, I think you have to start looking at the culture at the start when you are building and hiring a team. So you shouldn't be too focused on, skills, be it, super skills, sales skills, or technical skills. It's the culture that will make a difference. So just make sure you take that into account from the beginning in order to build it properly ground up.
Yeah, and I think my sort of last takeaway from this before we wrap it up and say thanks to you guys is kind of what you said first, Guy. It's not about the clients first. You put your employees first. It's not necessarily about the pay. It's not necessarily about the fancy office with slides and all the sort of things that you see a lot of places trying to attract people with, because they don't make that big a difference. It's about the openness, about the ability for people to progress, both personally, technically. I think that really develops a culture that people want to come and be a part of. So I think on that note, I don't know if there's any closing comments. And then I think next week, kind of going back to your point, Guy, about obviously getting your message across the world with the various nationalities around at Cake is all about marketing. So I think we've got you back for that one. Wow. Okay. 2 on the bounce. Looking forward to it already. Well, after this one, you make my job so easy in terms of doing I don't have to do much. So I'd like to thank you both again for your time. Well, thank you. I enjoyed this very much. Yeah, thank you. And it was great chatting with you guys, and hopefully people listening will gain some benefit out of it as well. Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, guys. I think that just about wraps things up here. If you have any thoughts or questions on anything we said today, get in touch, whether that be through our Twitter @RealTSF or email at hello@startupfactory.tech, or feel free to drop in for a coffee and a chat. As ever, thanks for listening.